Well, another Tuesday night. Chap here with you on Chap's Fantasy Chat, and we're going to talk actual, factual, content fantasy baseball. I come to you on Tuesday nights at 7 via the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com, the best fantasy baseball network in the business. Such great minds on this network. I am privileged to be a part of this group of people. It's interesting listening to everybody's different perspectives. Because, let's face it, ain't shit going on. Ain't shit gonna be going on. But that doesn't mean we can't continue to prepare. I can't stress this enough, okay? Because it is. Being someone who talks about sports in a time when there is no sports is really hard. But here's what's going to happen, guys. And I want you guys to understand this because there's an opportunity to take advantage by just doing a little preparation right now. Because if you think about it, most of my leagues have drafted. I think I have 2 yet to draft that have postponed until after all this goes on. But inevitably, here's what's going to happen. They're going to, air quotes, open up the country. And all of a sudden, everyone's going to start drafting again. And again, 80% of the people that you're going to deal with in these leagues are going to have done effing nothing. So, I am choosing to use this as an opportunity to optimize my lists, to think a little deeper about, it never fails. There's always a handful of guys that don't get drafted, that don't get talked about in these preseason discussions, who end up being really good ball players. 2 guys that come to mind immediately for me from last year is Scott Kingery and Christian Walker. So, you could have gotten both of those guys for free last year. And isn't that what this is all about? Doesn't that just put the cherry on top of the sundae? When you could pick a guy up, guys like we're going to talk about tonight, and they just make your team. I'm not saying all these guys are going to pan out. I'm not saying I'm necessarily buying all these guys. A lot of them I am, okay? I don't like selling shit I won't buy. I really don't. But the point of all of these players that we're going to talk about tonight is their draft capital is next to nothing in most cases. So, again, Tuesday night, Chaps Fantasy Chat. LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. If you are not in the chat room, go to that website. It's a free site. You can go and you can interact with the best podcasters in the world in terms of fantasy baseball. Right now, they're all in there. Arnie Jones, Andrea, George, Taco, Lenny the Legend, the founder, Ed, thanks for coming, brother. Appreciate you. Kevin Hastings, I know, is somewhere. He was on a little bit ago. I love all you guys. You guys are my my sanity check. And hell, even Andrea. Andrea and I were going back and forth on politics today. I love you, Andrea. And I appreciate everything you and Lenny do for this network. I feel totally honored and privileged to be a part of this. And that's the great thing about fantasy baseball, about fantasy sports in general. It transcends everything else. And I talked about this last week. Before I get into this, it's really tough when you're going through this stressful time. And I don't want to get into that because this is my escape, right? But it's really tough when you're going through all of this shit where you see Basically, people dying out in the streets. And then you take away fucking sports. Like, that's the escape. That's the release. And it's gone too. So, I want to thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me. Especially, especially you guys that might be new to this. I got some guests in here. I think I got a decent idea of who some of them might be, but guest Leland, guest Maddie, guest Miles, I see you guys. If you guys have questions during the course of this, if you want an opinion, this is meant to be interactive, so I certainly appreciate questions and comments, and hell, even if they're smart ass, I don't care. So, I love you guys, and thanks for joining this hour with me. But, so again, just like I always do, we're talking about value. And a lot of these guys, you can get for free. So let's jump right in, okay? The first player I want to talk about. And again, so just, I want to paint a little bit of a picture first. These are all guys that were once highly touted, once spoken about in the same type of ilk as a Jesus Luzardo or a, Jordan Alvarez or a Bo Bichette or Vlad Guerrero. These were all once really highly touted prospects. But damn it if it's not a grind. And sometimes things don't pan out just like you want them to, right? But that doesn't mean the talent went away. Who am I talking about? The first guy I want to talk about, and I want to do it because I got my boy Arnie in here. How about Jordan Montgomery? Jordan Montgomery he's not overly blessed with the skills that your front end pitcher has. He's a lefty, so that's an advantage. But what I like about Montgomery is he's cemented in the middle of the Yankees lineup. Exactly, George. I love it. George says Todd Van Poppel was once a highly touted prospect, and I remember Todd Van Poppel. I got through some serious cheese, but it didn't pan out, right? What I like about Montgomery, his ADP is 291. So you're talking about drafting him at the end of the draft. Worst case scenario, he's your 4 pitcher for the Yankees, who are going to win a ton of games. And I just like where he sits in that rotation, coupled along with some of the potential he's shown me before his TJS 2 years ago. I really do think one thing that Montgomery is really intriguing with is he doesn't use baseball savant doesn't call his fastball a fastball. It calls it a sinker. He throws it more than any other pitch. And I guess I want to back away from sinker. Let's call it at best a hard sinker. Because he's throwing that sucker 4 out of every 10 pitch. He's throwing it a lot. That means that's his predominant pitch, right? Comparatively speaking, so it's averaging 91.6 miles an hour. He throws a curve 30% of the time. That averages 81 miles an hour. And he has a changeup that he's throwing 18% of the time. That's averaging 84.8 miles an hour. So there's the thing with Montgomery, which is the thing with a lot of these. I don't want to call them finesse pitchers because they're not quite that. But lefty skill pitchers. Let's call them that, right? It's about developing a plane differential and speed differential, right? So what do I mean? A plane differential, you're coming from the same spot, but it's doing really different things. That makes it hard for a batter to pick up on. Montgomery's worked on that. And it's shown. It's shown in the preseason. He struck out 16 batters in 11 innings with just one walk in the spring. I really like Montgomery. And again, at 291, if you're looking at a last starter or a player off the bench that you can sub in, you could certainly do a hell of a lot worse than Jordan Montgomery. He has the potential, being in that really explosive Yankee lineup, to produce much more than a bench pitcher. I think Montgomery's a great value at 291. I want to talk about another ex-Yankee prospect. Arnie's loving this. Let's talk about a guy who is being drafted even further down than Montgomery, but was also once a highly heralded prospect. As a matter of fact, as a 22-year-old, he went 7-6 with a 2.48 ERA and had 123 to 50 K to walk rate as a 22-year-old. I love Justice Sheffield this year. He's another one of those guys that's working on his playing differential, and he's really shown in the preseason, in spring training, that he's improved as a pitcher. In 8 innings, he had 12 strikeouts and 0 walks. Now, admittedly, last year when he moved over to Seattle, he struggled. And that's why he is where he is, right? He was, again, well thought of in the Yankee organization. I think Seattle did the right thing with kind of handling with kid gloves. He's going to be 24 years old this year. And he sure does have a lot of talent. Again, fastball 92, slider 84, changeup 87. His changeup is faster than his slider. What I get from that is Sheffield needs to locate his pitches. But it looks like he's found something. And at 364, he's free. So why not take a chance on him, right? Dylan Cease, with an ADP of 289, the former Cub prospect, what I love about Cease is, first off, getting rave reviews in spring training. But the most important thing about Cease for me is his fastball velo is in the 92nd percentile among all major league pitchers at 96.5. His fastball spin rate is in the 87th percentile. Now, for you non-baseball nerds, spin rate's a big indicator in swing and miss ability, right? If the ball's spinning, it's going to be harder to put good contact on it. So, throw in the fact that really he's a 4-pitch pitcher already as a 23-year-old. And he's got his sliders, again, his fastball's at 96, his sliders at 84, his changes at 83, and his curve is at 79. So he's got good pitch differential. And the White Sox are going to be good. So I really like what Dylan Cease has to offer. And again, at 289, the potential is there. I want to pause. And I want to admit, this next guy isn't a post-hype sleeper. But I put him in here for contrast. I put him in here because Lenny was talking. No. I put him in here, and I loved that Lenny was talking about him this morning. Because Jesus Luzardo is really still a prospect.